Variant monsters. Creatures throughout the series that have evolved far beyond their normal means in terms of their innate capabilities, that they stand out as the more advanced creatures in comparison to the standard versions of the monsters that we are so familiar with throughout Monster Hunter. Variant monsters in the series have evolved in such an odd way that most of these creatures did not really intend to evolve into variants to begin with, at least from what I can observe throughout the entire series overall. So what we're going to be taking a look at today is what exactly triggers a variant evolution throughout Monster Hunter to get a better understanding as to what exactly causes a creature to become a variant throughout the series. Now let's go ahead and get started. Hey everyone, Pinoyx here once again, back with another Monster Hunter video, and today we are going to be taking a look at variant monsters, but more specifically, we are going to be taking a look as to what causes a monster to become a variant throughout Monster Hunter. Variants are unique monsters that have taken on distinct changes in terms of their characteristics in order to make them stand out from the regular monsters in which they are based on. Alongside this, variants are far more in tune with their inherent abilities, allowing them to take on new movesets that are far more advanced and far more powerful in comparison to the regular monster. There are three distinct situations in which a monster could be forced into becoming a variant throughout the series, and we are going to be exploring each and every single one of them to better understand as to what causes a monster to become a variant throughout Monster Hunter. Now with all of that being said, if you enjoyed these videos, please consider leaving a like on the video itself and let me know in the comments below if you have any ideas as to what could potentially cause a monster to become a variant throughout the series. Now let's go ahead and take a look as to what causes a monster to become a variant. The first situation that we can observe that could potentially trigger a variant transformation on a monster is none other than a sudden change in the monster's overall habitat or environment. Now in this case scenario, this one's actually unique to Iceborne due to the sheer fact that there are only two monsters in the entire series that actually transform into variants due to a sudden change in their environment, the Shrieking Legiana and the Black Veil Valhazak. No other monsters in the series overall has managed to transform into a variant due to this particular reason, making this particular transformation unique to Iceborne, which is super awesome. Now in this case scenario, we have the Shrieking Legiana, which was forced to go into the Hoarfrost Reach in order to live there due to the fact that the Shara Ishvalda was driving them out of the Coral Highlands. Now in this case scenario, due to the fact that the Legiana already has ice capabilities, it simply improved upon that in order to better live in the harsh snows of Hoarfrost Reach. The Black Veil Valhazak is a weird situation in my opinion, however. The Valhazak seems to be a little bit mindless of the situation that it's actually transforming into a variant in the game. It seems like it was just walking around the ancient forest and all of a sudden, the natural effluvium that was generating around the Black Veil Valhazak was slowly absorbing the spores within the forest, meaning that the transformation might not have even been happening as a means for the monster to improve itself, but rather an accidental situation. So for the most part, a sudden change in the environment could potentially trigger a monster's overall transformation into a variant within the series. The next situation that we can observe in the series that could potentially trigger a variant transformation on a monster is none other than a sudden change in the monster's overall metabolism. Now this one is unique for every monster that can transform into a variant because of their natural ways of living their lives. Certain monsters will take on variant transformations due to the fact that something inside them is changing. Other times it's external, something along the lines of trying to shed its skin like with the Rasid Kushala Daura, or something along the lines of the Chaotic Gormagala. Now in these case scenarios, it's either going to be a positive or negative experience, but for the most part that I've seen in the series so far, it's usually a negative experience in which a monster's metabolism changes, thus forcing them to become a variant. A Savage Deviljho, for example, is just a regular Deviljho in which the hunger has become so powerful that anything and everything that it sees that basically moves is now food. Now in this case scenario, the standard Deviljho that became the Savage Deviljho was probably just living its life as usual, but all of a sudden that powerful hunger started to cave into it, thus forcing it to become the reckless monster that we all know in Monster Hunter. So this is a situation that's a little bit dependent on what kind of transformation the monster is taking on in terms of its metabolism, whether or not this is going to be positive or negative. There are 5 creatures overall that we have observed throughout the entire series that take on a sudden change in metabolism in order to force them to become variants. We have the Savage Devil Joe, the Raging Brachydios, Rusted Kushala Daura, Chaotic Gormagala, and finally, we also have the Seething Basilgeese. So all of these creatures will transform into variants when something inside them changes overall in the series. The final situation in which a monster could potentially trigger a variant transformation is none other than deadly conflict. Conflict against other monsters, or more importantly, conflict against hunters, could trigger a variant transformation on a certain monster. In the series so far, we have seen 3 variants that have taken on their transformations due to conflict. These are the Scargian Garuga, the Furious Rajang, and finally, Ruiner Nergigante. All 3 of these creatures have shown their variant transformations through combat due to the fact that one way or the other, they have proof that they have been battling for a very long time in the battlefield. The Scargian Garuga, for example, has the battle scars on its face, and Furious Rajang has its tail cut off. Ruiner Nergigante is a little bit more unique in that it actually shows a unique intelligence never seen before on a standard Nergigante, allowing it to advance its overall capabilities as you progress through the fight, making it a much tougher combat the more damage you deal to it. So these monsters have actually been fighting for a very long time in their lives, and for the most part, their variant transformations were triggered due to combat. Overall, these 3 monsters are close to being considered as deviants to some extent because the way that they become variants is almost similar to how a monster becomes a deviant throughout Monster Hunter generations. Now, what you'll notice about all of these events that I've mentioned so far is that every single one of the monsters that has become a variant has actually had to experience life first in order to take on their transformation to begin with. Meaning that any monster in the series cannot be born with variant abilities. They need to experience life first in order for the trigger to occur. Certain monsters that are born with innate capabilities already altered are actually considered as subspecies more so than variants. Alongside this, any monsters considered to be variants can actually revert back into their normal beings depending on which kind of situation they have taken on during their life. Battle-hardened monsters, they're not really going to be able to revert back into their normal state because the damage done to them is pretty much permanent. So Furious Rajang more than likely can never grow its tail back. Same goes for the Scargian Garuga's ear. However, a monster like the Savage Devil Joe, once you satiate its hunger, can actually go back to being a regular Devil Joe. Same goes for Rusted Kushala Daura, where it shed its skin to become a regular Kushala Daura once again. So depending on what kind of events they take on in their life, their variant transformation will either become temporary or become permanent. Now, as a couple of final key notes, I want to talk about 2 main things before closing off this video. First and foremost, regarding deviants. Many people might think, what about deviants and variants? Are they exactly the same? Well, the answer is technically yes. Deviants and variants in terms of their overall characteristics are similar to one another. The only reason Capcom created deviants to begin with was in order to create a unique group of monsters exclusive to Monster Hunter Generations and Gen Ultimate. This is the reason why they expanded on variants in Iceborne instead rather than bringing back deviants, because every single characteristic between a deviant and a variant is exactly the same. The only real difference between these 2 kinds of monsters is that there are 3 main ways for a variant to transform into what they are, but deviants can only transform into what they are through to one situation, and that is none other than fighting against a hunter and living to tell the tale. Aside from that, everything else remains relatively the same. The second thing that I wanted to look into is in regards to Chaotic Gormagala. Some people might think, how is this exactly a variant monster? Well, the situation is still the same as that of other monsters that have gone through metabolism changes, but this one is unique. This is due to the fact that Gormagala can transform into something altogether different that the Hunters Guild treats it as a separate entity, which is Shagaro Magala. However, because the transformation has been interrupted, Chaotic Gore Magala is now stuck between its original form and the final form that it should transform into, which is again Shagato Magala. For the Research Commission, they could technically discover a halfway point between Xenojiva and Safijiva, thus creating a Xenojiva variant throughout Iceborne. However, we have not seen this as of yet, and I don't think Capcom will ever create a halfway point between Xeno and Safi unless of course they decide to create an entirely new game with Xenojiva still in it. Meaning that there is technically a potential for something like Xenojiva to become a variant monster by simply interrupting its molting process throughout Iceborne. And that is pretty much it for this video, taking a look at variant monsters and what triggers a monster to become a variant throughout the entire series. Hopefully you found this information helpful so you have a better understanding as to what makes a variant separate from something like a subspecies throughout Monster Hunter. If you have any theories at all regarding what causes a monster to transform into variants outside of the ones that I mentioned, do let me know in the comments below what you think could cause a monster to transform into a variant one way or another throughout the entire series. Now with all of that being said, if you enjoyed these videos, please consider leaving a like on the video itself, as well as subscribing to the channel, as well as hitting that bell icon so you can go ahead and catch up on any future Monster Hunter content that I might be doing or any other games that I might be playing in future. Until then, I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks ever so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Onward and upward.